Hello and welcome to the Claret and Blue podcast. This is our match preview for Aston Villa's home FA Cup game against Spurs on Sunday evening at 5:35pm kickoff. John, how's things, mate? I spy a new background. For those that are listening, means nothing.
Yeah, well, this is supposed to be our office, but we abandoned it pretty much because it gets very cold in my apartment, but also the Wi-Fi, went for the cheapest Sky Wi-Fi, and didn't have the thought to just get a Wi-Fi booster. So got that now so I can do the podcast in here. So I thought I'd jazz up for the background.
Nice.
It looks like I'm a Villa historian or something. So, I mean, I'd take that. It's got like different elements going on. Got the programs here. From last season and Conference League, and then there. I don't know if people actually know this. The 150 logo there, that's all of the home programs from this season. I don't know if anyone's been collecting them like me. Yeah. And then behind me here, Captain Phillips.
Oh, hey,
nice. I love it. The most surreal moment.
Let's get to the main event then, Aston Villa versus Spurs. Mm-hmm. We're recording this Friday night, so you've been to the press conference this afternoon. We will be talking about little embargo bits and pieces that will be in the news by the time this podcast comes out anyway. Nothing groundbreaking. Probably the biggest takeaway from today's press conference that we were all waiting for was the Champions League squad registration rules and who was going to miss out. We'll come to that in a sec. Just the general vibe and what it was like being up there. What it was like being there at Bodymore. We'll start with that.
Good vibe. Now that the transfer window is finished, I mean, I said the transfer window is finished. It has finished, but it almost feels like something's still happening because we haven't seen a Rashford player yet. We haven't seen a Asensio player. We haven't seen Disasi, and we won't do until at least next weekend. And obviously the Champions League squad rule stuff as well. So it felt like there's been almost like a hangover from the transfer window, at least my perspective. So yeah, it's kind of nice that after this weekend, that'll be over and we can really just concentrate on the football itself and other things that come with that, like injuries. So, yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to in the next few weeks. Hopefully, we can beat Spurs, get through to the next round. Then we have, another 3 home games in a row after Tottenham. So that's something to look forward to. And then in March, we barely play. So it's going to stop then. And then you're going to have, 2 months or so at the end of the season just to hammer out what left we have. Hopefully we're in the Champions League still, but also in the Premier League as well. We'll know after we play, who would it be? Last game, Brentford, middle of March, between those 2 Champions League round of 16 games. After that Brentford game, we'll know for like 3 weeks where we're going to stand over the international break and what we need to do pretty much to get what we want at the end of the campaign.
We've spoken about the FA Cup and this kind of approach, like if we can get through it by accident, we'll kind of start taking it seriously the further we get into it. Obviously, with the understanding that you're not going to get far into it if you don't take it seriously. Yeah. Is the 5th round enough for you to start taking it seriously? Or is it only because it's at home against a fellow Premier League opposition where you kind of think, okay, well, we do have to kind of play a strong team here?
Obviously, 4th round against Spurs, then if we win 5th round, and then basically, if we beat Tottenham, I think that's when you can really look at it and think, okay, maybe we can do something here. Because then if you win your next match, you're in the quarter-final. If a round has final at the end of it, I think that's when you really do take it seriously. And if you have the opportunity to get to that round as well. So, yeah, for me, 5th round of the FA Cup, that's when you start to really pay attention to it. And, of course, you'd pay attention to it much more if that was the only competition we had left. But we're in the Champions League. We're going for Europe in the Premier League as well. And in previous campaigns, it was either we're trying to just stay up or we're treading water. So those cup competitions took on a huge kind of added value as such. And while we still feel desperate to win a trophy, those feelings don't change. But no one can lie, and especially Unai and the players, their focus will be elsewhere in the kind of first few rounds of the competition. But if we can get past Tottenham, that's now 2, or it would be 2 Premier League teams that you're beating at home. Then you have a draw of the 5th round. If you can get another home tie against the side who aren't above you in the Premier League, well, you could be on your way to a quarter-final. Obviously, we know what happens after they're not going to go through it. But that's when you can really start to look at it. So what will be on Sunday. I think it's a great opportunity for us to win against the Spurs side who have had our number pretty much in the last few times that we've played them. But really we know the injuries.
Not very good, are they?
Yeah, we know the injuries that they've got. And I think a lot of people say it as well as myself that the way they play is almost the direct opposite to the way that we play. They don't, we like control. They don't really care for it. It's all frantic and it's, here and it's now, it's kind of crash bang wallop. So, hopefully we can get a result. And I got a feeling that it'll go one or two ways. I mean, obviously, but in terms of a scoreline, I feel like they could score 5. We could score 5 as well. They beat us 4-0 last season. And I don't think we played kind of in terms of tactically. I don't think we played the right way to combat them in the end. I mean, obviously we didn't, but in the way that we set up, it didn't look right from the outset. So yeah, hopefully against on Sunday, we can set up well and get the result we need.
We normally do injuries second in this preview show, but I'm going to skip over that because we've got a kind of semi-good segue into the away from match day section where we can talk about something that isn't related to this upcoming fixture, and that's the Liverpool fixture change. That obviously Liverpool getting through to the Carabao Cup means that we now play them on the 19th of February, which is only 12 days or something from us recording this. 7:30 at Villa Park, making it that run of 4 in a row, Spurs, Ipswich, Liverpool in the midweek between Ipswich and Chelsea. That would have been the knockout playoff round second leg if Villa had not qualified for the top 8. I qualified for the round of 16 via the top 8, same as Liverpool, so we're both free that week, so it makes sense to stick it there. I quite like the idea of that being now rather than us being a game behind for potentially 3 months, and that's played in like the last midweek of the season or something like that. I get that it's a kind of fixture congestion or whatever, but I would rather play it than be behind. The reason I've stuck this in now is because the 5th round of the FA Cup, and I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves here, but as it stands, we play one match in the league in March now, Brentford away from home.
That will be the only league game,
on the 8th. The Champions League round of 16 will be the 4th or 5th and the 11th or the 12th. But the FA Cup 5th round is Saturday the 1st of March. So if we were to beat Spurs, we would have FA Cup on the weekend, Champions League midweek, Brentford at the weekend, and then Champions League second leg. So that'd be like, at the minute, see the fixtures aren't in the fixture list because we have not got through yet, apart from the round of 16. But you've got Brentford. Oh, well, March will be quite free. Well, if we get through the FA Cup, we've got the 5th round in the 1st, and the quarter-final is the 29th of March as well.
I actually prefer to play Liverpool earlier now. Yeah, I wanted them to get through against Tottenham, firstly because I don't want to see Newcastle lift the trophy, and secondly,
I just think
either. Precisely, to play 4 home games in a row, I don't think that can ever be a bad thing, really, to be honest.
No.
You know, if you've got a couple of away games in there and it's 4 games in 13 days like it is, but you've got 2 away, that changes it like completely, really. But there's no travel, there's no worries for me anyway in terms of exactly. I think it's a great opportunity for us to find rhythm, and so we're playing a couple of strong sides, especially in Liverpool, and then also Chelsea, which I think is a good opportunity for us. But Ipswich and Tottenham feel like games that we can win, in succession. We know it doesn't always work as easy as that, but Villa, when was the last time we lost at home in the league anyway? Was Arsenal, right? Yeah, I think it's one of the longest unbeaten runs at home in the league. So I'm happy about that. And also I like the fact that in March, that second leg of the round of 16 at home, that's the last game that we'll be playing potentially for 3 weeks, or at home it could be, I don't know, like 4 weeks or something silly. So that in itself is an occasion, but with the added effect of the people walking into the stadium, it's the last time they walk in the stadium for, well, only a matter of weeks, but it feels like a very long time, doesn't it?
That second leg will have a lot riding on it, hopefully, because the first leg has been gone in Villa's favour or whatever. That you'd have, and it shouldn't be like this, but you'd have one eye on thinking, we got Liverpool at the weekend. That's
exactly.
Going to be tough as well, and the Premier League's important. Yeah. Villa can put everything into that second leg, knowing the game after. Well, there's no weekend fixture for us, and then it's international break, and then we potentially come back in the FA Cup quarter final, or maybe we don't. That's a big gap of not having any fixture that you can put absolutely everything into the round of 16 second leg. So it is interesting how the fixtures kind of fall.
I like how the fixtures are falling for us in this way. We know it's going to be a busy period, but actually, if it's like 4 home games in a row, and then a pretty empty March, even if we are in the FA Cup, there'll be a couple more games, but they're spaced out relatively
well. They could be at home.
Exactly. And that round of 16 game being the last one that we play before the international break, don't get me wrong, I want to see football every other night, to be honest, and I want Villa to be playing midweek and on the weekend to keep myself busy. And it'll be horrible for that long period to not see any proper football. That would be difficult, but at the same time, we know that home game, second leg, that could be like, really good. So gives us an advantage, I think, even more so now.
Injury update then, back to Spurs specifically at the weekend. Is there anything to report, John?
No. I mean, so 5 players are we missing the game. So Pau Torres we knew about, Mike Cash we know about. So Cash is 2-3 weeks away. Torres, I think it's give or take around 3-4, that sort of thing. So both players should be back for the first Champions League first leg, if that makes sense. That's the hope. Ross Barkley remains out. That's taken a little longer than first expected. Anana obviously returned against Wolves. 2 players missing. So Mings, there was an image of him coming out to train, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure what that training looked like, though. That might not have even been first team. It could just be like individual. I'm not sure. So I'm not going to speculate, but he's out, Emery said. And Emery also said that Watkins will be out as well. He didn't train on Friday and isn't due to train on Saturday either. But Emery is hopeful that Watkins will be able to train next week ahead of playing Ipswich. So that's, I think, as good as it could have been in terms of Watkins' injury. Obviously, it was a muscle injury, so you want to be careful. Mings as well. I think we all knew that he'd miss Spurs. We'll see how it goes for next week. Hopefully, that's one that we can get back with Watkins. And then all of a sudden, your squad looks, it's not perfect, but healthier.
We will pick an 11 for Spurs and what it means that Watkins is out and what options we have in a little bit. Let's talk about the Champions League squad rules then. Again, we've done a lot on this over the last week. I think it was this time last week, actually, we first kind of thought, is it more than 3? No, it isn't. It was confirmed today, although we'd had it confirmed by UEFA when we did the podcast on Wednesday. It was only going to be 3. Still some doubts over, but could it be 4? No, it was 3. And Emery was asked about it today, inevitably in the broadcast section, before you pesky written journalists even got to embargo it. It was out there, done. This is what's happened.
Yeah,
and it was kind of. We were chatting earlier, we were speculating of will Emery actually say it's these players that have missed out, or will he be coy about it and say, oh yeah, it's a shame to lose a couple of players and we'll communicate that in the coming days or whatever. You'll hear from us in an official way later. But he confirmed that it was Malen and Garcia that missed out. Garcia was one that everybody kind of took as read as an inexperienced young right back, where Villa have cover there. If it was going to be one player to miss out, Garcia was the one. The fact that it's 2, he was absolutely going to be one of the 2. We had the debate on Wednesday. I think most of us had it down as either Disassi or Malen. I think most people expect Rashford and Asensio to be in there, given their pedigree, wages, what they've been bought in for, kind of the here and now.
Yeah,
it is Malen. The 2 players that are missed out are the ones that we actually own and are permanent transfers, as opposed to the 3 loanees that are in there. Mm-hmm. What did Emery say about it, and did anything he say affected how you feel about it at all?
No, to be honest, I wasn't surprised about the 2 players missing out. I already had my piece gone as a draft in preparation for it, because
you said Marlon on Wednesday, didn't you?
Yeah, and I just think as well, you need that depth with Disassi. I just don't think he was going to ever take that risk. The squad itself was announced about an hour or 2. I say announced; it was on the UEFA website. I've had some criticism about this.
I was about to say, I've got
someone's pulled it up. And I'm a bit frazzled myself, to be honest. I've always just said UEFA.
Yeah, I think you've said it. I mean, we definitely talked about UEFA many, many times on this podcast, and I've never really clocked it. UEFA? No, not UEFA.
But there's no A in. Do you know what I mean? So I've never. I mean, obviously at the end, you're not. Do you know what I mean? UE. For me, that's U. UEFA.
UEFA.
If there's an A,
everyone says UEFA.
Yeah, but if it's UEFA, UEFA.
Yeah.
Whereas it's UEFA.
Is it not like Europe, European, UEFA?
Yeah, but it's
Europe.
I don't know. UEFA? I mean, I'm obviously in the wrong, so I'm going to look silly the more I try and fight it.
Well, it literally doesn't matter, but yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't matter at all. You can kind of go with the kind of proper European, like UEFA, or however they say it. But I'm not going to be doing that.
What does UEFA stand for, by the way? Union of European Football Association? I need to find
I was going to. I'd have said something else, but they put the
Union of European Football Association. Oh, I've smashed that.
So the European Union Football Association, they put up their squad lists for all the clubs, which I was surprised at, to be honest, because the deadline was yesterday. Last year, Villa, their squad was confirmed 4 days afterwards. So quick timing. So it was good that actually that there was asked in the broadcast section, not the written, because it would have been embargoed for absolutely no reason. There was some embargoed quotes about Malen, kind of a bit more about the conversation, not too much like given away by Emery as you'd expect, but he did essentially like confirm. He did kind of admit that it was like a bit of a like uncomfortable, I suppose. Like it was difficult, it was hard to kind of tell him. And then he did mention as well that like, obviously like, we want him to be here for like many years to come and play in the Champions League again. So it's one of those where he's just going to have to take it. And I think we said off camera, Dan, as well, like ideally Villa go to the final and win. But if it is the case that we go out in the round of 16, you know, it's not that deep. But it is deep. But in terms of the grand course of Marlon's career at Villa, missing 2 football matches, you know. But what is important is what I said before. It's the fact that we've essentially said that we don't think you're as useful for us than these 2 loanees. And I know it's different positions, and I know it's different, you know, things for tactics or whatever, but it's just an odd one, how we've kind of got in this position. I understand that it's, you know, defenders are injured, we have to bring another one in, but yeah, it's a shame for the player, really. That's all I can say.
But it'll be interesting to see how he reacts to it, because he's not going to. I mean, we don't know him. He's been here.
No, I mean, to be fair,
no time at all, really. But he's not going to kick his toes out of the pram after being at the club for like 3 weeks or something.
Yeah, Emery said he's trained well, and I'm sure he'll take the decision, and I'm sure he'll understand it as well, to a point of like, well, 2 loanees come in. It's one of them's Rashford, one of them's Asensio, who's won the Champions League 3 times, like, and then one is the defender out of necessity as well. Like, I think he'll understand it, but it won't make it any easier.
Can you also like sweeten the deal a little bit by like, we've got 14 Premier League games and a cup run, like you will get plenty of starts.
Well, that's exactly. Well, I mean, I don't think you can promise it, Emery, but he did say as well we have other competitions, and ultimately that he's not wrong. Like Villa may only play 4 matches that Marlon won't be involved in, but I say it's just the point that, you know, he's joined thinking he's in the Champions League, not the only reason, but a relatively big one, and he's not going to be involved. So yeah, it's just a shame. Nothing more to say about it. I mentioned before, I don't actually think it's that big of a deal in terms of player isn't involved. I think it's just been a big deal because a lot's been said about the rules, and we're not really too sure why. Like, it's, you know, a lot's been kind of speculated of, oh no, we can do 4. I think Marlon will be in the squad, and it's, you know, black and white that it's 3 players, and then it's the whole deadline day, like 3 loan signings 3 days apart because it's Sassie's at, you know, 1 a.m. on the Tuesday morning. Like, a lot's happened. I just feel like everything's kind of built up and built up and built up, and now we know that Marlon is in the squad. I think after tomorrow we'll just be like,
yeah, when we get to that match, that round of 16 match, and if it's Dortmund, it will absolutely be Heighton because it's his former club, obviously. But it will just be, here's the team news for Dortmund. Oh, and by the way, Marlon's not available. And that will be it. Like, it will be. I mean, he might be injured at the time. He might not be playing anyway. Like, there could be any kind of reasons, or he could play every game between now and then and be on hot form. And the talking point then is, it's a real shame Marlon's not in there. But club have got to take a gamble on picking who they think is the best decision.
I did think this before we jumped on the podcast and thought, well, what if he scored against West Ham and that goal counted against Wolves? Scored twice in 2 games. Would that have swayed Emery's decision? I know football, you never know what would happen in football, but are we going to be knocked out of the Champions League or go through because of Marlon's kind of intervention? Do you know what I mean? Like, is he going to? We don't know. So it's kind of pointless me saying it. But isn't it? We're not. It's not as if we're missing a player who,
Martinez.
I don't know how to put it, but I don't think it's that important. But the talking point in itself is just that we've had to tell a player, actually, you can't play this competition.
Yeah, I'm going to offer you speculation from the fans and then what probably happened or possibly happened, and then see what we think. So there's been a lot of kind of speculation and talk about whether the club got confused and also thought it might before and signed all these players, because every player spoke in their interview about Champions League is a factor for me coming here. Yeah. One of them's missed out. Was there some kind of like, Villa have messed up and all the players came because of Champions League, and now they've got to have a difficult conversation to say, oh, well, we actually got it wrong. One of you's got to miss out.
Yeah.
I think that's a very, very unlikely, considering you emailed UEFA and got.
Can I just jump in there and just already say no, that wasn't the case?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you could get an email from UEFA. The club can go directly to them and qualify that whenever they want and get an answer. Like, there's no way that the Villa got it wrong, or it was hectic in the last few days of the window and someone made a mistake.
And they forgot.
I think the most likely scenario is that they probably didn't really expect Duran to go, so they wouldn't have signed one of Rashford or Asensio. And 3 loan, forget Garcia, that was always going to happen. It was always going to be, if we sign 4 players, 1 misses out. You'd say Malen, Rashford and Disasi are the 3 that get in. Garcia doesn't, and that's that. Duran is still in the squad because he doesn't leave and we don't sign Asensio. When Malen came in, they probably didn't think Duran would leave that window and they'd sign 3 players to go in the squad plus Garcia, and that would be the end of it. Duran suddenly leaves. Okay, we need 1 extra in Asensio, and now we have 4 players. We can only register 3. That's going to be an awkward conversation because they've all come knowing that or feeling like Champions League is important to them, and that's a factor for picking Villa. That's just a difficult situation of circumstance. It's not an administrative error.
No, this isn't. No, there was no admin problems here. And again, I say this in the most polite way possible. I don't think the rules were. I know we had a bit of a hiccup ourselves, but that's because we didn't brush up on them. But when you read the rules, it explicitly says only this applies if your league starts and ends in the same domestic year. So therefore, Villa can't do 4. So all along, they knew it was free. That's not the issue. The issue is that they were, and I don't mean this necessarily as a criticism, but it's the truth. They were quite reactive in the transfer window. For example, players received bids, Villa accepted them, and they probably didn't expect to sell Philogene and Duran and make up to 100 million euros or pounds, in transfer sales. Like Villa knew what they were doing. It was just that they didn't know what would happen next week or the week after that because of the PSR problems that they have. So everything or every player. Maybe not every player's up for sale because obviously Watkins wasn't after Duran went, but at the start of the window, pretty much anything could happen if the right bid is tabled. So, Malen came in, Garcia came in. Malen came in obviously because we needed something different. Now that Philogene had left, Garcia came in because Nedeljkovic was going. So that's like, one comes in, one comes out. But we've been left with a situation where we've then done too many. But I think they would have assessed the situation and thought, well, do we bring in a defender this late in the window to help us try and get into the Champions League again and sacrifice Malen for a number of Champions League games? Or do we leave ourselves down to the bare bones in defence and let Malen come off the bench in a couple of matches or maybe 4 or 6? I think it's a pretty straightforward decision. So I think the club did the right thing in the end in terms of oversubscribing their team, as it were, due to the Champions League rules. In general, I don't understand the rules. I do, but in terms of I don't understand why they are there.
I don't really.
I get you shouldn't be able to add more than 3 players if you haven't sold anyone. But I think it just should be a thing of, well, you can replace 1 player for 1. One player comes out, and you can do that as many times as you like because you bought the player. There's nothing illegal about it. He's your player, you're paying the wages, so why can't you play him? But I get it if you sign another 10 because then your squad's just too big and bloated, and Chelsea would be silly. They'd have 2 different squads literally, like for Champions League and Premier League. I know there's something similar in the conference, but that would be a problem. But I don't know why you can only do maximum of 3. It just doesn't seem right.
Let's move back to Spurs then. Let's pick an 11 who's gonna play this weekend at Villa Park. Obviously, Ollie Watkins won't be. He's already been ruled out. The rest of the injuries were ones that we knew about anyway, really, in regards to Mings, Torres, Barkley, etc. So Watkins is only the really one from the last game that needs changing. Obviously, Duran is no longer around to be the easy option here to replace Watkins. But Villa have signed the profile of players that they have in Rashford, Asensio and Malen, that they're primarily there to play behind the striker, but in situations when Ollie Watkins is injured or suspended, one of them is going to have to move up front and be the main guy. We'll start there. Is it one of those 3? Or is it Morgan Rogers, who I've just forgotten about? Could he play up front?
I mean, he could. I think it'll be Malen. I think that makes the most sense.
I do.
To be honest, I think he will be the backup to Watkins when needed, when required. Emery said in the embargo section that he sees Rashford as kind of best position off the left, and obviously mentioned he can play kind of off the striker and also on the right if needed. But I didn't get the impression that he suddenly thinks, and he can be a replacement to Watkins. I just don't think, and I agree with that as well. Rashford likes to play off the left. I think you need to. Rashford's an interesting one because obviously he needs to work very hard, and also Emery needs to give him kind of an arm around the shoulder at the same time. So I think it would be strange if you then suddenly start playing in a position that he doesn't want to. That's not to say that he won't do it because it's only for 1 game, and maybe Emery thinks that that's the best way of beating Tottenham. But I think Rashford will be playing off the left for almost all of the games that he plays in. Maybe after Spurs, if he plays it front, I don't know. Just because the Watkins situation is one that's unusual because he usually plays every game, doesn't he, Watkins? So I think Malen will start up front. That's just a hunch.
Yeah, okay, I agree. Rest of the team, I don't think there's any reason to be changing the goalkeeper or Matson for Dean. And
No.
I mean, Cash is injured, so obviously defence is still a little bit shaky. Disassi can't play because he's cup tied, which again,
Yeah.
I'm not a massive fan of that rule still being in existence at this point. He played X amount of minutes against Morecambe, I think it was, for Chelsea.
Yeah.
Can't play against, like, if they get all the way to the final, he can't feature at all because of that. Like, that's a rule that should be replaced as well, I think.
I'd like Garcia to start.
I'd prefer that over Bogard, I think.
Nothing against Bogard, but I think we've seen. Don't mean this sound
He's
like
not a right back for a start.
No, that's it. So that's kind of one point. But also, I think we've seen like enough. There's a big enough sample. No, it's not a big sample size, but a big enough sample size to suggest that Bogard is still kind of uncomfortable in that position. Whereas we have just bought a right back who plays at right back. Like, it just seems necessary. Like, play him. Bogard for me, yeah, I think his best position is a holding midfielder. To play at centre back as well, he can definitely do that. But I think he probably needs some more experience and maybe kind of to fill out a little bit more. But yeah, he's definitely a talented player, Bogard. I just think that well, now that we have an actual right back, like position wise, like that's where he plays, why wouldn't we play them? At least for 45 minutes, like he did against Wolves. And I think he did okay, to be fair. Garcia made a couple of like loose errors, but that was his first game in top flight football in general. I was impressed by some of the stuff. So yeah, I'd give him a chance again. And then you're back for Consta, Kamara and Luca Dean, I presume.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's our best option at the moment, although obviously I'd rather Kamara in midfield. I think if it's not him, it is Bogard and Consta. And I think our best chance of winning the game is Kamara. Is Kamara a better centre-back than Bogard? I guess he is, isn't he? Just from experience and stuff as well. A suggestion in our comments, no, I absolutely disagree with this, but don't let that sway your answer. There's a few comments that suggest could Onana play centre-back just because his physical size and that kind of thing. I don't think he could play centre-back.
But we're talking in this situation of, you could probably put it another way and say, would you... No,
Would you rather Onana at centre-back and Kamara in the midfield, or Kamara at centre-back and Onana in midfield?
To be honest, I was majorly put off by playing Kamara again at centre-back after the Wolves game. And again, we know how good he is in that role of holding midfield, but I think it also showed how quite easy it can be just to think, oh, this guy's tall and can run, so let's play him at centre-back and he can tackle. Like, it's elite level football. Like, it's so much more detailed than that, and it showed against Wolves. So that's why I never sort of think about, Torres playing in midfield or whatever. Like, it's just completely different things. So yeah, for me, I think after saying all of that, I think he'll probably just continue with Kamara. I wouldn't. I would play Bogard there now. Okay,
so in midfield then, Tielemans and Onana if fit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Onana needs some minutes, doesn't he? He's the one that falls into my F1 analogy that could be a great player, but if he's not reliable enough to finish the race, then what's the point kind of thing? He needs minutes, consistent minutes if possible, to get any kind of impact. Then you're into the interesting parts. We've already suggested Malen to play up top and Rashford off the left, which I think that is how it will go.
You think Rashford will start?
Oh, yeah, I'm thinking long term more so. Will Rashford start? I don't know, probably not. I don't think he will, unless you know anything from the presser that.
No. I genuinely don't have any information on this at all.
No, I think
so I'd be guessing. I don't know.
I think the thing with Rashford is there's been a lot of talk about like, oh, he doesn't look fit and he's got bloated face in the transfer photos and all this nonsense from different sources that are basically hit pieces on somebody they don't like, basically. And you don't need to pay that much attention when it's not your player. All of a sudden he signs for Villa. It's like, whoa, has he been dealing with this for like the last however long? Like, this is crazy stuff, really. Yeah. So I don't think there's any doubt over Marcus Rashford's fitness in terms of he's been doing fitness while he's not been in the squad at Man United. Still been training, still been doing personal work, etc. So fit enough, absolutely, but not played for a while. So does he come in immediately and start? I know it's only the FA Cup, but it's still Premier League opposition. So I don't know if he starts, but he'll definitely play a role. He will play on Sunday, and hopefully he can get up to speed very quickly. But I don't think he's a starter just yet.
Yeah, well, Emery did say in his presser kind of like, I don't know whether they're going to be, and then I thought he'd say like in the squad, but he said, I don't know if they're going to start. And that already told me, okay, so they're probably fit enough too, if that makes sense. Because if you don't know whether they're going to start or not, it means that it's you're thinking about it. So I'm thinking too much about it. But no, by all accounts, Rashford's had a very good start at Bodymore in terms of applying himself and whatnot. One of the lowest body fat percentages in the squad, if that makes sense. They do all the scans and whatnot. So he's clearly one of the fitter members of the team. I think we knew that anyway. But obviously, how that translates into
not out of shape then, as everyone seems to be suggesting. I wish I was as out of shape as one of the lowest body fat percentages in a group of people.
Yeah, especially when they're elite footballers as well. Yeah. And as well, he had 2 days off for the start of the week, but he didn't take him. He wanted to train, kind of insisted on training. So, I think everything that you've heard or that we've heard through the media about him, this is a problem, that's a problem. No, this is actually and then it just goes around and around in circles. Well, the facts are, is completely shredded, and he's been working hard in his first few days at Bodymore and wants to make an impression. So, pretty good, I think.
That front four then to finish it off. I think this is probably boring and not as exciting as I want to go to Villa Park on Sunday and see all the new signings. But I think it'll be Ramsey left, Rodgers in the centre, and John McGinn on the right. Yeah,
I think I agree with that as well. I kind of think he might start one of the new players, but at the same time, imagine if you're Ramsey, I just feel like he needs that. I feel bad for him in a way because he's going to be playing kind of with a lot of pressure now when he starts. Because it's like, well, if you don't play, but at the same time, I don't think you can just take him out of the team right away because that almost signals exactly what Emery hasn't done so far. If that makes sense. Like you earn your place sort of thing. No one gets a free role unless you've proven yourself, like Watkins, for example, and he'd play him out of form instead of the run.
Yeah. I agree. Emery doesn't usually throw them in early, but this does feel different to what we've seen before. That
I do.
Finite amount of time for the loanees. If let's say Ramsey plays Sunday and Ipswich and Chelsea, well, that's 2 Premier League games less that Marcus Rashford has to use this loan for.
Yeah.
It's like
these players are here to play, but it's just the kind of the psychological part. I think Emery will also be wary of. Well, these players are here for me next season as well. I don't want to upset them, and I know it's kind of a brutal industry, but that's. The facts are that you also need to reward as well. It's different, completely different. But I remember when we had Coutinho and Buendia, and that's sort of situation with Gerrard when Coutinho had 4 good games at the start and then fell off a cliff. And we were basically playing with 10 men away from home for a lot of the time. And then Buendia couldn't get in the team. And I'm sure Buendia would have been, mightily tough with it, but he was a good character, to be fair. Well, it still is. So it'll be interesting to see how Rams kind of. I'm sure he'll take it on the chin and, that'll motivate him to play even better. But it'll be interesting to see what he does because you're right. Those players will play a lot of the games coming up, if not all of them. Yeah. So how that works.
Let's end this show then with our score prediction where we don't track them for anything other than the Premier League. So, John, you don't even need to write them down. We'll just chat. It doesn't matter. I think we'll win. I don't really care too much about getting it bang on because we're not keeping points or anything, so I don't know, 2-1 Villa, whatever. I just think we'll win. I think it's a great opportunity to be at home again, to start off a bit of a run. Spurs aren't very good. What I saw against them against Liverpool just made me think, how did they beat us how they did early on in the season? Like we kind of have to take revenge almost and get one back onto them. So back over onto them. Back over them?
Back
get
over
one back
them.
Back
over on them.
Get one back over on them as well. So Villa win 2-1 and one of the new lads to score at some point during that.
Yeah, I think we can get one back over on them as well.
How did we lose that game in the way we did though earlier in the season when they're what they are? Yeah, they're not very good, are they?
No, Cash, it's not the only reason, but Cash coming off was a big turning point in that game, but I'm not going to go through that now. I'll say 3-2 Villa, Rashford to score.
Okay, nice. Get involved in the comments across YouTube and Spotify with your thoughts on everything we've spoken about this afternoon or this morning or whenever this podcast airs or when you're listening to it, actually. Myself and Matt Kendrick will be here on Sunday evening to discuss whatever happens at Villa Park. I normally say hopefully it's 3 points for Villa, but hopefully it's progression into the 5th round for Villa that we're talking about. So do join us then if you can. Thank you very much for watching or listening, and we'll see you Sunday. Sunday? Are you a D or a day person?
Saturday, Sunday, day.
You're a day, yeah. My wife is.
I know how to say Sunday. I didn't have to say Saturday beforehand, but it was just I don't want to be influenced, so I'm Monday, Tuesday.
I don't know whether that's a regional thing, but I would say like
Sunday.
Sunday, Tuesday,
Sunday.
Wednesday.
No, day for me.
Monday.
Yeah.
We'll see you on Sunday. Thank you. That feels got quite posh.
Oh wait, are you including this?
I mean, I will have to include a bit of it. Yeah, I think. But,
okay. I can feel like a UEFA kind of problem going on there. I don't understand that. I really don't.